Finally,
Episode 2,
silence.
The Little Thief.
Who's there?
In our last episode, Elias Walker faced the unthinkable. A baby Bigfoot appeared in his barn, fragile, trembling, innocent.
Who's there?
And when the towering mother came to reclaim her child, she did not attack. She bowed her head in
No.
thanks, leaving Elias with a haunting truth: not every shadow is meant to harm. Some are born to protect. But that was not the end, because only a few nights later the child would return. The ranch lay quiet that night. The wind whispered softly through the pines, the horses dozed in their stalls, and Elias sat alone by the fire shadows,
You came
dancing
back?
across the cabin walls.
For apples?
He thought the
Eat,
strangeness
I'm
of
not
his
angry.
life would return to its silent rhythm, until he heard it. A sound. At first faint, the rustle of straw, the scrape of wood, then a sharp clatter as though a crate had been shoved aside. Elias stiffened, pulse quickening. Who could be prowling his barn at this hour? Grabbing his lantern, he stepped into the night. Snow crunched beneath his boots, each step sinking into the frost. The barn door creaked open on its hinges. Left ajar, inside shadows shifted. And then a red apple rolled out across the dirt, stopping at his feet. Elias raised the lantern high. Its beam sliced through the dark and caught a pair of wide, shining eyes staring back at him. In one small, fur-covered hand, a stolen apple. In the other, nothing but trembling curiosity. The little mouth chewed noisily, half in fear, half in mischief. Baby Bigfoot. It had come back. Not to sleep in the hay, not with its mother. Tonight it had returned, to steal. But why was it only hunger that drew it here, or something deeper? And what will Elias do when faced with the little thief in his barn? Stay with us, because this is episode 2 of our 10-part Bigfoot series. Subscribe now and don't miss what comes next. Part 1. The Clumsy Thief. Elias pushed the barn door open, the lantern trembling in his hand. Its light spilled into the shadows, flickering across hay bales and wooden beams. What had once been a place of calm was now chaos. Straw lay scattered, crates overturned, and the sweet scent of apples filled the air, mixed with the restless sweat of horses shifting nervously in their stalls. And there, in the middle of the mess, was the intruder, the baby Bigfoot. Small fur, a deep reddish-brown, awkward hands buried halfway into the apple crate. Its little backside stuck out, swaying clumsily as it dug deeper. Juice dribbled down its chin as it chewed, oblivious to the man watching from the doorway. Elias held his breath. He couldn't believe his eyes. The same creature he had seen cradled by its mother just days ago now, back in his barn, fumbling and feasting like a mischievous child. He took one cautious step forward. The floorboards groaned. The little one froze. Its head shot up, eyes glowing wide in the lantern light, a half-chewed apple still wedged in its mouth. For an instant they stared at each other, man and creature caught in a moment, suspended between fear and disbelief. Then a squeal, high-pitched, startled. The apple slipped from its hands and hit the floor with a dull thud. In a flurry of fur and limbs, the baby Bigfoot bolted. Apples rolled everywhere, clattering against the wood as the little thief darted back and forth in panic. Elias just stood there and laughed. A low, rusty laugh that echoed through the barn, startling even the horses. It had been years since he'd heard that sound from his own throat. The creature skidded to a halt, peeking around a wooden partition. Those wide eyes blinked at him, unsure. Was the man angry or amused? Elias lowered the lantern slightly, his voice rough but steady. You came back. For apples. His words carried no anger, only weariness tinged with wonder. The baby Bigfoot tilted its head. For a long moment it didn't move. Then hesitantly, it scurried out from behind the boards. One small furred hand reached for an apple that had rolled across the floor. But instead of shoving it into its mouth, the little one turned. Step by step, trembling but determined, it walked toward Elias. The man stood frozen as the creature drew close. Those brown eyes lifted, shimmering in the lantern glow. And then gently the apple was placed into his calloused palm. Elias's throat tightened. He stared down at the fruit, then back at the childlike figure before him. No monster. No nightmare, just a clumsy little thief offering back what it had taken. His hand trembled. Then slowly he pushed the apple back into those tiny fingers. "Go on," he whispered, voice breaking. "Eat. I'm not angry." For a moment, silence. Then the baby Bigfoot's eyes lit with joy. It snatched the apple close and plopped down right there on the hay, gnawing hungrily. Elias watched, unable to look away. A smile crept across his weathered face, hesitant, almost forgotten. In the stillness of that winter night, as snow tapped against the barn roof, something stirred inside him. For the first time in years, Elias Walker felt his heart soften. Part 2. The game of hide and seek. The baby Bigfoot sat hunched in the middle of the barn floor, both hands clutching an apple, eyes wide and glistening in the lantern light. Juice smeared its fur, dripping down to the straw, but it didn't care. It was staring at Elias, not with the menace of a beast, but with the nervous curiosity of a child caught red-handed. Elias said nothing. He lowered the lantern slowly, letting its glow spread across the barn. For a moment the world seemed to stop. No sound but the faint whistle of wind through the boards and the restless snorts of the horses in their stalls. Then, without warning, the little one let out a sharp squeak and bolted. In a blur of fur and limbs, it dove headfirst into a hay pile, vanishing completely. Straw rustled and shifted, but the child was gone. Elias narrowed his eyes, stepping closer. Lantern raised. He scanned the hay, listening. Then came another sound behind him this time. He turned. Two bright eyes peeked out from a crack in the boards. For an instant, they sparkled mischievously as though daring him. And then, just as quickly, they disappeared. Elias let out a low chuckle. "So? You want to play a game, do you?" He moved slowly, deliberately, letting his boots creak against the floorboards. The lantern swung at his side, casting long, stretching shadows. He pretended to leave his back-turned shoulders sagging as though giving up. And then it came a tiny giggle, muffled but clear. The little one popped its head out again, waving the apple in the air like a trophy. Elias spun, raising the lantern. The baby Bigfoot shrieked in mock horror, tossed the apple into the air, and tore off across the barn. Tiny feet clattered against the wood, apples tumbled and rolled, and the creature vanished behind a stall. Elias laughed harder this time, a sound deep, rusty, almost forgotten. The horses jerked at the noise, ears pricking, but even they seemed curious about the commotion. The game went on. The child darted from hiding place to hiding place behind the trough, into the hay, even leaping out from behind a horse which reared and whinnied in surprise. Elias waved his hand quickly, calming the animal, while the mischievous little thief scurried away again, delighted at its own chaos. Again and again, Elias pretended to give up, walking away with heavy, tired steps. And again, the little one would peek out, waiting for him to notice, only to squeal and run when he turned suddenly with the lantern's beam. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours, the barn echoing with soft laughter, squeals, and the thud of tumbling apples. At last, the baby Bigfoot collapsed onto the straw, panting, shoulders rising and falling with each breath. Its fur stuck out in every direction, messy and sticky with juice. In its hands, one apple remained untouched, gleaming red under the lantern light. Slowly, it lifted its gaze to Elias. There was fear there, yes, but something more fragile, worry, as if it expected punishment. Then, with trembling hands, the child held the apple out to him. Elias froze. The gesture was simple, but it spoke louder than words. It was an apology, an offering. He stepped closer, taking the fruit in his rough, scarred hand. The weight of it felt heavier than it should. This little thief, this monster from the woods, was giving something back, a sign of trust. His throat tightened. He looked down at the apple, then back at the small, waiting face. For a long moment, silence stretched between them. Then Elias's hand moved. Slowly, gently, he pressed the apple back into the little one's palm. His voice broke as he whispered, "Eat. I'm not angry." The baby Bigfoot blinked, stunned. Then its eyes lit up with joy. It clutched the apple close, plopping down in the straw once more. This time it bit into the fruit, greedily chewing with loud, happy smacks, glancing up at Elias every few seconds as if to make sure it was truly allowed. Elias stood with arms folded, watching. A faint smile crept across his weathered face. It felt strange, almost foreign, but it stayed. In that barn with the wind sighing through the trees and the snow falling beyond the walls, Elias Walker realized something had shifted. For years, his ranch had been a tomb haunted by silence and loss. Tonight it was filled with the sound of life, the sound of play, the sound of trust being born. And for the first time in a decade, Elias felt peace. Part 3. The Offering. The next morning, dawn broke gently over the valley. Snow clung to the barn roof, glittering as the first rays of sunlight struck, melting into droplets that slid down and sparkled like glass. Elias pulled on his old coat and stepped outside, his breath curling in the cold. The air bit at his skin, but in his chest lingered the warmth of the night. Before laughter, tiny footsteps, and those shining, mischievous eyes in the dark. He made his way slowly toward the fence line where his ranch met the forest's edge, and there he stopped. On the weathered wooden rail rested a small purple wildflower, its petals still heavy with dew. Beside it lay a smooth stone, faintly glimmering green under the rising sun. They had not fallen there by chance. They had been placed, deliberately, carefully. Elias's gaze dropped lower. In the mud, fresh tracks, small, unmistakable, led from the trees to the fence, then back again, vanishing into the shadows of the woods. He bent down, fingers closing gently around the flower. Its stem trembled in the breeze, fragile yet defiant against the cold. Holding it, Elias felt a strange warmth spread across his hand, as though the offering itself carried meaning beyond its size. Behind him, the cabin door creaked. The woman stepped out, pale from her recovery, but steadier than before. She followed his gaze to the flower and stone. Her eyes softened. "It's a gift," she whispered. "From the child. It knows what you did." Elias said nothing. His eyes lingered on the tree line where shadows stretched deep and secrets multiplied. His heart thudded harder, a rhythm he hadn't felt in years, not since he had once held his own boy in his arms back before loss had hollowed him out. For so long his life had been nothing but silence, isolation, and grief. But now a creature the world had branded as a monster had left him a flower and a stone. And in that simple gesture was gratitude, pure, unspoken, undeniable. He tightened his grip on the wildflower, closing his eyes. His breath escaped in a long sigh, carrying with it something he hadn't admitted until now: acceptance. From this moment on, Elias no longer saw the baby Bigfoot as a burden or a threat. He saw it for what it truly was, a living, fragile soul that had reached out to him and trusted him. The woman moved closer, standing quietly at his side. Together they stared into the woods, silent companions at the edge of two worlds. Somewhere beyond the trees, perhaps those wide brown eyes were watching, waiting, hoping. Elias's voice broke the silence, a whisper meant as much for himself as for the forest. Sometimes, a wild child understands gratitude better than any of us. The wind stirred, making the flower tremble in his hand, as though agreeing. And for the first time in a decade, the ranch of Elias Walker no longer felt like a grave. It felt alive, with connection, with hope, with the faint promise of a story much greater than his own now unfolding in the shadows of the forest. Elias stood at the fence line, the flower trembling in his hand, the stone cold yet precious in his palm. For years, this ranch had been nothing but silence, a monument to his grief. But now even the silence felt different. It carried the weight of laughter, of small footsteps of trust beginning to take root. The woman beside him wiped at her eyes, though no words passed between them. None were needed. Together they looked into the woods where somewhere in the shadows a little thief was watching, waiting, learning what it meant to give back. Elias whispered more to the wind than to her. Sometimes, even a wild child knows gratitude better than we do. And in that moment he knew his life had already changed. But the world beyond his fence would not stay blind forever. Because in the next chapter, the village will discover what Elias has been hiding: a child in the shadows. And he will be forced to choose, protect the legend or betray it. This was episode 2 of our 10-part Bigfoot series. Subscribe now and don't miss episode 3, The Child in the Shadows.